Daniel never imagined that a quiet night at the observatory would become the moment that changed his entire life. For weeks he had been working late, night after night, checking the massive telescope, recording star patterns, analyzing distant galaxies, and fighting against sleep with nothing but cold coffee and determination. He actually liked those hours. When the rest of the world was asleep, the universe felt closer. The observatory was peaceful, silent, almost magical. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly above him. Millions of stars shined like tiny diamonds, scattered across a black ocean. For Daniel, the sky had never just been empty space. It was a mystery waiting to be solved. But tonight, the universe answered back. While adjusting the telescope to record unusual star movements, Daniel noticed something strange. A small light appeared on the edge of his viewing screen. At first, he didn't think much of it. Probably a satellite. Maybe a meteor. Something ordinary. He had seen thousands of strange objects in the sky. But then, the light changed direction. Daniel frowned. Satellites didn't move like that. Neither did meteors. The object slowed down, stopped, then moved again, almost as if it was thinking, almost as if it was searching. Daniel slowly stepped away from the telescope. His tiredness disappeared. That can't be right. He adjusted the focus. The object became clearer. It wasn't glowing like a meteor. It wasn't reflecting sunlight like a satellite. It was producing its own light. A soft blue glow surrounded it, and strange patterns moved across its surface like flowing energy. Daniel's heartbeat increased. He grabbed the radio. Then stopped. Who was he supposed to call? How do you report something you don't understand? Unknown object approaching. The words sounded ridiculous even inside his own head. The object began descending. Slowly, carefully, not falling, landing. Daniel rushed outside. The cold night air hit his face as he looked upward. The glowing object moved silently above the observatory. No engine noise. No explosion. No smoke. Nothing. It was impossible. A few seconds later, it touched down on the empty field beside the observatory. Not with a crash. Not with flames. Not with destruction. It landed gently, like it had done this 1,000 times before. Daniel stood frozen. Every instinct told him to run. Every bit of training told him to be cautious, but curiosity was stronger. He slowly walked toward the strange craft. The surface was unlike any material he had ever seen. It looked like metal, but it moved like liquid. The glowing patterns shifted as he approached, almost like the ship was reacting to him. Daniel stopped several meters away. Hello? His voice sounded small in the silence. Nothing happened. Then, a sound came from inside, a deep mechanical vibration. The side of the craft opened. A door formed where there had been no opening before. Daniel held his breath. A figure stepped out. Not a machine, not a creature from a nightmare. A living being, tall, graceful, completely unfamiliar. Its skin reflected the blue light from the ship, and its eyes looked directly at him with the same surprise he felt. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Two beings from different worlds stood face to face. Then the alien spoke. The sound was strange, but somehow, his translator device from the observatory equipment picked up the signal. A single sentence appeared on his screen. "You are not supposed to be here." Daniel looked at the message, then back at the alien. He swallowed. Funny. He glanced at the impossible spacecraft behind her. I was about to say the same thing. And in that quiet field beneath the stars, humanity's first real contact with another civilization began. Not with a war. Not with a government mission. Not with a grand expedition. But with one tired scientist, a forgotten observatory, and a mysterious visitor who had fallen from the sky. It settled quietly, glowing like a giant pearl in the dark. Daniel's curiosity overcame his fear. He grabbed his jacket, his flashlight, and hurried outside to see what it was. Each step toward the glowing object made his chest tighter. He thought about calling someone, but who would believe him if he said a shining ship had landed outside? When he reached the spot, the glow dimmed, and what stood before him left him breathless. A structure, half ship, half temple looking, had unfolded on the ground. Its surface was smooth, metallic, yet almost alive, as if it was breathing light. A door opened, and figures walked out. They were tall, armored, and moved with sharp discipline, carrying staffs that glowed faintly. Daniel froze, his mind screaming that this was impossible. Then she appeared. The woman who stepped out was unlike anyone he had ever imagined. She was tall, elegant, and radiant, in a way that seemed almost unreal. Her silver eyes caught the moonlight, her long hair shimmered like threads of gold, and she carried herself with a commanding grace. Around her, the armored figures bowed deeply, showing her respect. Daniel realized instantly she was their leader, their queen. His heart pounded so hard that he felt dizzy. He didn't know if he should run, hide, or speak, but before he could decide, her eyes met his. She studied him, as though she already knew him, as though she had been expecting him. Her guards tightened their circle, but she lifted her hand, and they stepped aside. She began walking toward him, with slow, powerful steps. Daniel panicked. He didn't know their language. He didn't know what they wanted, and he certainly didn't want to anger them. His mind scrambled for something, anything that might show respect. In his nervousness, he remembered a small, harmless gesture his grandmother had taught him long ago. Whenever they visited family, he would bow slightly, place his right hand on his chest, and then extend it forward. It was his grandmother's way of saying, "I come with peace and honor." He thought maybe this would show he meant no harm. So he did it, bowed a little, placed his hand on his chest, then extended it toward her. His hands trembled as he tried to smile nervously. The queen stopped in her tracks. Her silver eyes widened slightly, and then a soft, almost glowing smile appeared on her face. She lifted her chin, and her guards gasped. She spoke a word in her language, a single sound that echoed with meaning. The guards dropped to one knee instantly. Daniel had no idea what he had just done, but from their reaction, he realized it was something serious. The queen stepped even closer, touched his hand lightly with her fingers, and declared something that made her soldiers cheer. Their voices rose in unison, repeating her words with pride. Daniel's mouth went dry. He whispered under his breath, "What just happened?" One of the guards, who seemed to understand some Earth languages, turned to him and spoke in broken English. "You proposed to our queen?" She accepted. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. His brain almost stopped working. Proposed? Married? That couldn't be right. He wanted to laugh, to deny it, to explain that he had only made a respectful greeting. But the way everyone around him was looking at him, like he was chosen, like he was special, told him that no explanation would change what had just happened. The queen looked at him with calm certainty, as though the decision was final. She reached for his hand again, this time holding it firmly, and nodded once. Her touch was warm, surprisingly human, but it carried a power that sent chills through him. Daniel wanted to speak, to protest, to tell her this was a mistake. But the words died on his lips. He could only stare back at her, lost in a storm of fear, wonder, and disbelief. In the span of a single moment, an ordinary man working at an observatory had somehow become the chosen consort of an alien queen. The guards surrounded him, not his captors, but his protectors. They guided him gently but firmly toward the glowing ship. Daniel stumbled as they walked, glancing back at the observatory one last time, his old life fading behind him. The queen stayed close by his side, her presence both terrifying and strangely comforting. As the ship's door closed behind them, Daniel realized his life would never be the same again. He had made a simple, clumsy gesture, and in doing so, had changed his destiny forever. And though fear still gripped his heart, a small part of him couldn't help but wonder, what if this mistake was meant to happen? Daniel's legs felt weak as the glowing door of the alien ship sealed behind him. A soft hum filled the air, as if the entire structure was alive. The walls shimmered with faint colors, pulsing like a heartbeat, and the floor beneath his shoes was warm instead of cold metal. He had expected sharp edges and hard machinery, but instead, the inside of the ship felt strangely organic, like stepping into the belly of some giant, gentle creature. The guards kept close, Their glowing staffs pointed slightly downward, but ready, reminding him he had no choice but to follow. His mind kept repeating the same words. You accidentally proposed to the queen and she accepted. It didn't make sense. It couldn't be real. Yet, every detail around him screamed that this was happening. The queen walked beside him, tall and graceful, her silver eyes never leaving him. She didn't speak, but her expression held calm certainty, as if she already knew how the story would unfold. Daniel wanted to break the silence to explain the mistake, but his throat felt locked. They entered a wide chamber where the walls stretched so high they disappeared into shadows. A platform rose silently from the floor, carrying them upward. The movement was so smooth Daniel barely noticed they were floating, until he looked down and saw the ground drifting away. He swallowed hard, gripping the side of the platform for balance. The ship came alive with sound as they moved deeper. Melodic tones echoed like a choir, almost soothing. Transparent panels revealed glimpses of space outside, the dark sky, the shining stars, and the shrinking view of Earth below. Daniel's heart sank. His home was getting smaller, fading away with every second. He whispered to himself, I didn't even get to pack a bag. One of the guards gave him a puzzled look, but no one spoke. The queen only tilted her head slightly, as if curious about his muttering. Finally, they reached a vast hall filled with light. Tall pillars curved upward like trees, and in the center floated a throne-like seat made of glowing crystal. The queen stepped forward, her robe flowing behind her like liquid silver. The guards knelt again, lowering their heads in deep respect. Daniel remained standing awkwardly, unsure what to do. The queen turned to him, lifted her hand, and gestured for him to come closer. Daniel froze. His legs screamed to run, but something in her gaze pulled him forward. He walked slowly until he stood near her, the distance between them shrinking until he could see the delicate patterns on her skin. Faint lines that glowed softly, almost like tattoos of light. She spoke in her own language, words that sounded like music, yet carried, wait. Daniel shook his head helplessly. I don't understand. I don't know what you're saying. To his surprise, one of the guards stepped forward and activated a small device. A warm vibration filled the air, and suddenly, the queen's next. Words transformed into broken English, like an echo adjusting itself. You are chosen, she said. Her voice was calm but powerful. You proposed. I accept. Our bond is sealed. Daniel's mouth went dry. He raised his hands nervously. No, wait. That was a mistake. I didn't mean to propose. I was just showing respect. The guard's translation came out clumsy, and the queen listened carefully. She didn't frown, didn't get angry. Instead, she gave him a small, mysterious smile. Mistake or fate. It does not matter. The bond cannot be broken. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. You can't be serious. I'm just a guy from Earth. I work at an observatory. I'm not. He trailed off, realizing his words probably meant little to them. The queen stepped closer, so near he could feel the warmth radiating from her presence. She looked down at him, not with arrogance, but with certainty. You are mine now, she said softly, and I am yours. The hall echoed with cheers from the guards who raised their staffs high. The sound rattled Daniel's chest. His legs trembled, and he felt the world spinning around him. He wanted to deny it, to scream that he wasn't ready for this, but deep down, he knew resistance was useless. He was already caught in something far larger than himself. The queen turned and spoke commands. The platform shifted again, carrying them deeper into the ship. This time, Daniel noticed more of the alien world around him. Tunnels of light, moving symbols on the walls that seemed alive, creatures that floated like glowing jellyfish in transparent chambers. Everything was so beautiful, so strange that for a moment his fear was replaced by wonder. He whispered, "This isn't possible." As if hearing his thoughts, the queen glanced at him and said through the translator, "You belong here now. Do not fear." The words didn't calm him, but something in her tone did. There was no threat in her voice, only assurance, as though she truly believed he was meant to be here. Soon, they entered another chamber filled with stars projected all around them, like stepping into the universe itself. A great window opened, revealing the blackness of space and the blue curve of Earth below. Daniel gasped, his heart twisting. He was leaving everything he had ever known behind. His home, his job, his family. The queen stepped closer to the window, looking out with quiet dignity. She spoke softly, and the translator hummed, "Your world is beautiful, but our worlds together will be greater." Daniel stood frozen. He felt small, powerless, yet strangely drawn to her words. Something about her presence pulled him in, like gravity. The guards led him to a chamber prepared for him, strange but comfortable, with walls that glowed gently, and a bed shaped to fit his form perfectly. The queen lingered at the door, her silver eyes watching him with a mix of curiosity and certainty. "You will rest," she said. "Tomorrow you will learn." Daniel wanted to argue, but exhaustion washed over him. His head spun with everything that had happened. He sat down on the strange bed, staring at his hands, wondering how a simple gesture had thrown him into a future he never asked for. Yet, as he lay back, staring at the glowing ceiling, one thought stayed with him: her eyes. Those silver eyes that looked at him not as a stranger, but as if he had always been meant to be there. And even though fear still clung to his heart, a spark of curiosity burned within him. What if this wasn't just a mistake? What if this was the beginning of something far greater than he could ever imagine? Daniel woke up to a soft glow spreading across the walls of his chamber. At first, he thought it was morning sunlight, but then he remembered he wasn't on Earth anymore. The walls themselves were glowing, shifting colors slowly, like the sky at dawn. For a moment, he lay still, hoping it was all a dream, but the strange hum of the ship reminded him that everything had really happened. He sat up slowly. His clothes had been cleaned and folded neatly at the side of the bed, though he had no memory of anyone entering the room. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten since before the strange night began. Almost on cue, the wall opened silently, and a tray floated in. It carried food unlike anything he had seen before: shimmering fruits, glowing liquids, and bread-like pieces that steamed gently. He sniffed cautiously, expecting a strange odor, but instead, it smelled fresh and sweet. Hesitant but hungry, he took a bite of one of the fruits. To his surprise, it melted in his mouth with a taste so refreshing that he couldn't stop himself from eating more. As he finished, the door opened. 2 guards stepped inside, followed by the queen herself. She entered with the same calm grace as before, but now she wasn't wearing her formal robes. Instead, she wore lighter clothing that shimmered like silk, making her look less distant and more human in a strange way. Daniel stood quickly, unsure if he should bow, wave, or just stand still. His hands twitched nervously at his sides. The queen's eyes softened as she watched him, as if sensing his unease. "You rested," she said through the translator. Daniel nodded. "Yes. Though, I still don't understand why I'm here. I didn't mean for this to happen." The queen studied him for a moment, before stepping closer. "Intent does not matter. The bond was made. You are mine, but more than that." She paused, searching for the right words. "You are part of us now." Her words left him unsettled. He wanted to argue, to tell her again it was all a mistake, but the way she spoke, firm yet calm, made it hard to resist. Instead of arguing, he asked, "What do you mean by bond? What does that even mean to your people?" The queen turned slightly, signaling for him to follow. He hesitated, but the guard's silent presence left no room for refusal. They walked together through the ship, past long, glowing corridors and moving panels that displayed stars and maps. Finally, they entered a large hall where dozens of alien symbols floated in the air, forming patterns of light. "This is our history," the queen explained. She touched one of the glowing symbols, and it shifted into an image. Her people standing under 2 suns, their world filled with towers of light. Long ago, it was told that a union with one from beyond our world would bring balance. The outsider would not only be a mate, but also a bridge between worlds. A mistake to you is prophecy to us. Daniel stared at the floating images, his chest tightening. "So, you think I'm part of some ancient prophecy? I'm just me. I'm not a leader or a warrior. I don't belong here." The queen turned to him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "You are here. That is enough." Her words struck him deeply. He wanted to reject them, but he couldn't ignore the way she spoke, as if she truly believed he mattered. Over the next days, Daniel was shown more of her world. Even though they were still traveling through space, he was given clothing made from their strange fabrics, soft and light, yet stronger than anything he had worn before. The queen herself often guided him, teaching him simple words of her language, showing him how their technology worked. Though she still carried herself like a ruler, she seemed patient with him, even amused at times when he fumbled with their customs. Slowly, something began to shift between them. At first, Daniel saw her only as a powerful, intimidating figure, someone far beyond his reach. But as he spent time with her, he noticed small things. How her laughter was soft but rare. How she sometimes looked at the stars with a kind of sadness. How she listened closely when he spoke of Earth. One night, as they stood by the great window, watching distant stars pass, Daniel told her about his home. He described simple things: rain falling against his window, the sound of children playing in the street, the taste of fresh bread from the corner shop. The Queen listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable, but her eyes never left his face. When he finished, she said softly, "Your world is simple but beautiful. I would see it." Daniel smiled faintly. "And I would like to see yours. Not just the ship, your real home." For the first time, her expression softened in a way he hadn't seen before. It wasn't the look of a ruler. It was the look of someone longing to share something personal. Their bond grew slowly, but it grew real. And then, came the moment that sealed it further. During a visit to another chamber where the Queen was meeting with members of her council through projected forms, the air suddenly cracked with a violent sound. A dark figure leapt from the shadows, weapon in hand aimed at the Queen. The guards reacted too slowly. Instinct took over Daniel before he could think. He pushed the Queen aside and threw himself at the attacker. The weapon sliced across his arm, burning with a searing pain. But Daniel didn't stop. He struggled with the figure until the guard struck the attacker down. When it was over, Daniel was trembling, clutching his injured arm, but alive. The Queen stood before him, her expression more shaken than he had ever seen. She reached for his wound, her hands glowing faintly as she pressed them against his skin. The pain faded instantly, replaced by warmth. "You risked your life for me," she said, her voice breaking the calm tone she always carried. Daniel winced, but nodded. "I couldn't just stand there. You'd have been." He stopped, realizing what he was about to say. The Queen held his gaze, her silver eyes glistening with something softer than command. "You are not just mine by bond," she whispered. "You are mine by choice." Her words left Daniel speechless. For the first time, he felt the connection wasn't just one-sided, wasn't just prophecy or accident. Something genuine was forming between them, something fragile, but powerful. And deep in his heart, Daniel knew this was no longer just a mistake. It was becoming something far more real than he ever expected. Daniel had thought saving the Queen's life would earn him peace, but instead, it brought him into the center of greater trials. Word of the attack spread quickly among the Queen's people, and though many saw his bravery as proof of the prophecy, others whispered doubts. Some claimed he was still just a fragile outsider who could never truly belong. One morning, he was summoned to the council chamber, a massive circular hall where tall beings with glowing robes sat in elevated seats. Their eyes watched him with sharp curiosity. The Queen stood by his side, calm and steady, but Daniel could feel the tension in the air. A council member spoke, his voice deep and steady, translated for Daniel by the device. "This human has not proven himself. He saved you, yes, but one moment does not make him worthy. If he is to stand at your side, he must face the trials." Daniel's stomach tightened. "Trials? What kind of trials?" he whispered to the Queen. Her silver eyes turned to him. "They are tests of mind, spirit, and courage. Every consort must prove themselves. If you succeed, they will accept you. If you fail..." She did not finish the sentence, but her silence was enough. The next day, the first trial began. He was brought into a great hall filled with puzzles, floating crystals that shifted in the air, symbols that rearranged themselves, and patterns that glowed when touched. It was a test of intelligence. Daniel stared at it, overwhelmed. He had no training in their science, no understanding of their symbols. But then he remembered how he had once solved problems at the observatory by looking for patterns in the stars. Slowly, carefully, he began to notice the rhythm in the glowing symbols, the way they pulsed like constellations. He matched them together, forming shapes that made the crystals align. After long, breathless minutes, the hall glowed brightly in victory. The council members watched in silence, surprised. The second trial was survival. Daniel was taken to a hostile landscape within the ship's training grounds. The air was thick, the ground uneven, and strange creatures lurked in the shadows. He was given no weapon, only his wits. For hours, he struggled, climbing, hiding, and using the environment to outsmart the beasts. When one of them cornered him, he used a sharp rock and quick thinking to distract it long enough to escape. Exhausted, covered in dirt, he stumbled back to the gates. The queen was waiting, and though her face remained composed, Daniel thought he saw pride in her eyes. The final trial was of spirit. He was placed in a chamber of silence, surrounded by visions created by alien technology. He saw his greatest fears, his home on Earth fading away, his family forgetting him, himself standing alone in the dark forever. His chest tightened with panic, his throat closed. But then through the fear, he remembered the queen's words. "You are here, that is enough." He held on to them like a lifeline, refusing to let the visions break him. Slowly, the illusions faded, leaving him standing tall, his heart pounding but unbroken. When he returned to the council, there was no more whispering. Even those who doubted him bowed their heads slightly. The queen stepped forward, her voice ringing with authority. "He has faced the trials. He is worthy." The hall filled with silence, then with the sound of agreement. Daniel had done what no one thought possible. But while the council now respected him outside the chamber, trouble still stirred. Not everyone accepted him. Groups of rebels continued to rise, believing their queen should never have bound herself to a human. Daniel knew the challenges were not over. Still, for the first time since this strange journey began, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was beginning to belong. That night, as he stood beside the queen on the ship's balcony, watching stars drift past, she turned to him. "You proved yourself today. Not to them, but to me." Daniel's throat tightened. "I don't know how I did it. I just didn't want to disappoint you." Her hand brushed lightly against his. A simple gesture, but full of meaning. "You are no mistake, Daniel. You are the choice I did not know I was waiting for." For the first time, he allowed himself to believe her words. Maybe, just maybe, he was meant to be here. Peace did not last long. As the ship neared the Queen's home world, tension rose. Reports came that rival factions were preparing for war. Some saw the human consort as a sign of weakness, an outsider who had no right to stand at the Queen's side. Others believed his arrival fulfilled the prophecy, a reason to unite. When the ship finally descended onto the alien capital, Daniel was overwhelmed. Towers of light stretched into the sky, glowing bridges connected cities floating in the air, and rivers of crystal energy flowed through the streets. Crowds gathered to see him, some cheering, others glaring with distrust. He stayed close to the Queen, his heart pounding, unsure if he was walking into acceptance or rejection. The days that followed were full of conflict. Negotiations with rival leaders grew heated. Some demanded Daniel be sent away, claiming he would bring ruin. Others wanted him to prove himself again in battle. Daniel felt torn, wondering if his presence was truly helping or making things worse. Then the greatest threat came. A massive force of rebels launched an attack against the capital, determined to overthrow the Queen and destroy the prophecy once and for all. The city shook with explosions and chaos filled the streets. The Queen prepared to lead her forces, but Daniel refused to stay behind. "I may not be one of you," he told her, gripping the strange weapon the guards had given him, "but I won't hide while you fight. If I'm truly your consort, then I stand with you." The Queen's silver eyes softened, and she placed her hand over his. "Then we fight together." The battle was fierce. Daniel had never fought in a war before, but he used his instincts and quick thinking to help. He warned soldiers of hidden traps, guided civilians to safety, and even distracted enemy fighters long enough for the Queen's warriors to strike. His bravery inspired those around him. Slowly, the tide of battle turned. In the final clash, the Queen herself faced the rebel leader, a towering figure who denied the prophecy. Daniel, though afraid, stepped in when the leader tried to strike her from behind. His sudden move gave her the chance to end the fight, defeating the rebellion once and for all. When the dust settled, the city erupted in cheers. Daniel stood beside the Queen, exhausted, bruised, but alive. The people who once doubted him now looked at him with new respect. He was no longer just an outsider. He had fought for them, bled for them, and proved he was part of their world. That evening, As the twin suns set over the shining capital, the Queen and Daniel stood on the balcony of her palace. The city below glowed with lights, alive with hope. She turned to him, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "You came to us by mistake," she said quietly, "but you stayed by choice. And now I cannot imagine a future without you." Daniel took her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch. "I never thought I'd end up here. But if this is my life now, then I wouldn't trade it for anything." The Queen smiled, a rare, gentle smile meant only for him. In that moment, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself had blessed their bond. Daniel, once an ordinary man on Earth, now stood as the consort of an alien queen, not by accident, but by destiny, and together, they were ready to face whatever the universe held for them.